Hello, my name is Anthony and this is Fluorescent Learning. Before we get into the actual learning part, I saw my last video and noticed a couple things. I'll show you what I mean. Alright, so this is a screenshot from my last video. The first thing I noticed is this mic was apparently too far from my mouth because you could not hear me unless you turned your volume all the way up. I mean, sure, we could do some fun math to figure out the actual distance, but we'll save that for later. The next thing is this weird stain on my shirt. No idea what it was. My guess is probably baby boogers from my son. And the last thing, this font size was just way too small. I didn't realize how small it was until I watched it on a phone and yeah, couldn't read anything. But not to worry, all those things have been fixed. Yeah, my mic, I put my degree to some use and came up with this brilliant idea to wrap it around this other mic that I have. Why not just use this mic instead of this one? Good question. My shirt has 0 visible stains, and you'll see soon enough that the text now is very readable. Alright, now that all that's taken care of, let's learn. In this video, I'll explain what Python is, what you need to install on your computer to run and write Python programs. We'll discuss variables, getting input from a user and outputting something to them. We'll do quick maths, learn how to manipulate strings, how to write comments, and at the end, we'll try to wrap it all up with a small little project. So, what is Python? Well, Python is a programming language. I don't know how many there are. I know there's a lot, and I know that Python's one of them. Now, you may be wondering why I chose Python to learn. Well, Python is what's considered a high-level programming language. Now, that doesn't mean that you need a high level of set of skills to use this. What that means is that when they designed it, they really focused on the readability of the code. They made it to be more easily understood by us humans so we can focus on writing the code without having to worry about the computer hardware, such as allocating for memory or specifying to the computer, hey, I'm going to use this type of variable. Now you may be wondering, what all can you do with Python? And as you see here, there is a lot, from web development to machine learning, AI, making games, and I will be trying to go through each one of these. It will take a while, but hey, at the end, we'll hopefully be Python experts or really depressed. We'll see. To make Python programs, we will need an interpreter to read the program we wrote, and also a text editor to write the program. To install Python, you can just go into your browser, do a quick Google search for Python. Click the first welcome to python.org link, and here in the downloads tab there is options for Windows, Mac, and the other platforms like Linux. To download our text editor, VS Code will do the same. Come up here and quick Google search VS Code. This first link right here, and there it is, the download link for Mac for me, and I think if you have Windows it should say Windows automatically. I already have both of those programs installed on my Mac, but if you need a little more guidance on the actual installation process of them, I'll put links in the description for Mac and Windows for both programs. So what is a variable? Well, if you remember in elementary school, I don't remember, wherever they start putting the letters into math, The variables in programming are kind of similar to that, but in math, we say that the variable equals the number, whereas in programming, we say the value is assigned to the variable. So essentially, in programming, a variable is a labeled box in memory that you can put different data types into. So what kind of data types are there? Well, there's four basic ones that I'll go through right now. The first one is an int, and these are the short names. The second one is a stir, the third is a float, and the fourth is a bool. Int is short for integer, stir is short for string, float is a decimal number, and bool is a true or false value. Let's open up VS Code to see how to make these variables in Python. So I'll go ahead and type VS Code, and here we are at our welcome screen. This right here is our file explorer. As you see, we have no folder open. I'll go ahead and open one. I have one on my desktop already made. Python, and here in basics, open. Now you see here in the file explorer, it shows that we're in this folder. I'll go ahead and create a new file by clicking this icon, and we'll call it practice1.py. The .py lets the VS Code program know that we're writing a Python file. As you can see, the little symbol here changed to the Python logo. And here we are. We are now almost programmers. So for an integer, we can just create a variable named x and assign it the value of any whole number, and there it is, integer, that easy. For a string, we call this variable string, and to create a string, we either need to use single quotes or double quotations, and within those double quotations, you give your string value. Now a string is just a series of characters. Characters, as long as they're in the quotation marks, can either be actual letters, numbers, symbols, what have you. I can even put the @ pound sign, and Python will know, since it's within those quotation marks, that that is a string. And the next one, float, we can just say number is the name of our variable, and the same as with integer, we can just put a number, but this time include the decimal point, and Python will know that that is a float value. And for bool, we'll just call this yes, and we will assign it the value true. Now Python is pretty particular for Boolean values. They are true or false, but you need to capitalize the first letter for true and for false respectively. Type conversion is pretty easy in Python, and what it is basically converting from one data type to another. And I'll give you an example. So if we take our number variable, we'll create a new variable, new number, and we'll assign it the value number, but instead of just number, we will place number inside of int, and that lets Python know, take the number, remove everything behind the decimal place, and just give me the whole value. Now you have to be careful when using type conversion. For example, the string, it has all those characters, actual letters or symbols, and if I try to tell Python convert this string into an int, I will get an error. Whereas if it was just a single number or just a list of numbers in the string, and I try to convert it to an int, it'll recognize that those are actual numbers, as opposed to trying to convert letters into number values. Input and output. Taking data from the user and giving them something in return, or just displaying something. So for input, Python has a built-in function called input, and let me give you an example. If I create a variable called name and I assign it the value of an input, the problem with this, I'll show you right here. If I run it, you see there's nothing down here. Now the program is running, but the user would not know that because all they see is blank space. So let me go ahead and stop it with Control C, keyboard interrupt. and within the input function, I will give it an argument known as a prompt for the input function. And within it, I will write a question and leave a space for them to begin typing. And as you see, I gave it a string. The input requires a string value as its argument. Now, if I come over here and run it, we have the question, what is your name? And the user can go ahead and answer that. And that's the program. For output, Python has a print function. And what that does is it'll show information in the terminal or to the user. If I come here and I just say print, give it the value name or the variable name that we just made, come over here, run it, and it'll ask what's your name. I tell it again, Anthony, and now it returns the name I just gave it. One thing to be noted about the input function, whatever value the user gives you, it will come into Python as a string data type. So if you're trying to use that for numerical calculations, which we'll do in a little bit, you can get an error. So if I change this to now y, and I print y here, and I change this question now to give me a number, and I go ahead and run it. It has to give me a number. I'll give it a number 5, and it prints 5. However, if I wanted to say a new variable z, and it is assigned the value of y plus 1, and now I want to show z, if I come here and run it, I give it a number, we'll do 5 again, and you see I get an error. It says not int, because the input that the user gave me is a string. A way around this is using the type conversion. I'll assign it now int, whatever the user gives me, I'm telling Python convert it to int data type, keep all the other code the same, and I'll run it, give me a number, I'll give it the exact same number, 5, and now we get 6, their value plus 1. Let's see how to do some quick maths. So in Python, you can add, subtract, divide, multiply, and raise to the power pretty easily. So for example, for adding, as you saw, I can just do 8 plus 8, and I won't do the actual printing right now, I'll just show you how they're written. For subtracting, you would do the minus sign, and in Python it's good practice to have the space between the numbers and the operation. For multiplying, it's 8, the little star symbol, 8 times 8, and for dividing we use the slash. Now for raising to the power, like 2 squared, 2 to the power of 3, you would do double star, and then whatever you're trying to raise it to the power to. Now I'll place these inside of the print function and show you how Python would display them to the user. That's a pretty cool thing about the print function. You can just do the math inside the function. You don't have to assign it to a variable as we have here. You can just place inside the print the math that you're trying to do. Okay, those are placed in. I will delete this just so it doesn't run and we can see these print functions pretty quick. Come over here, press play, and there we have it. 8 added minus 8 times 8, 8 divided by 8, and 2 to the power of 3, which is 8. Now one thing you notice here for the fourth one down, 8 divided by 8, it returned a float. Now that's automatic default for Python whenever you divide two numbers. Whether both of them are integers or floats, one of them is a float, one's an integer, it will return a float value. Now a way around that is to do integer division, and you just place 2 divide signs right there in the function and it'll give you the integer value. Now another mathematical operator in Python is what's called the modulo, and what it does, if you remember doing long division where you take the cowboy and you put him in the house and then you leave the horse outside the house, and you go, how many times does 2 go into 12, 6 times, whatever. Well, there's sometimes a remainder left over, and that remainder is a whole number. The modulo returns that remainder. So if we do 17 modulo 8, and we go ahead and run it, you see down here the last one. Let me go ahead and erase these so we can see it clear what we're talking about. The last one down here is value of 1, and that's because 8 goes into 17 2 times. 8 times 2, 16, and you're left with 1 remainder, and 8 can't go further into that. So if that was a little confusing, just remember the modulo returns the remainder. If there is no remainder, for example, if I do 16 modulo 2, I'll go ahead and print it, you're left with 0. That's because 16 is an even number and it's divisible by 2 without any remainder. Now, as a little exercise, we'll take 2 values from the user and do some math with them. So let me delete these. We'll say number 1, we'll assign it the value of an input from the user, and I'll say give me a number. Then we'll say number 2, another input, and I'll say give me another number. Now we'll take those numbers and we'll assign it the value sum, and we'll say it's equal to 1 plus number 2, and then we will print that sum. Let's go ahead and run it. So give me a number. I'll say 5. Another number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, that's too much. I want to see the math. 512. Now remember I said that the input from the user is always a string value. And what Python did here is called string concatenation. Fancy word. Basically, it just means it takes one string and another string and it adds them together to make a single string. Now remember, the way around that is taking the input and converting it to an integer. Really easy. Now if I run it again, give me a number. I'll go ahead and give it the same numbers, 5, 12, and 5 plus 12 is 17, pretty sure. String manipulation. Now remember, a string is just a sequence of characters in Python, and in Python you can manipulate the string. Let me show you what I mean. So I'll erase all of this, and I'll go ahead and say string is equal to, or assign it the value of this is a string, and I print string. I'll run the program, and we'll see here this is a string. And one thing to note, if this gets pretty cluttered inside this terminal, you can just type clear. Now let me run it again, and there we have it. This is a string. Now, one way to manipulate the string is with slicing. And with slicing, I can say print string, but within square brackets, if I say from 2 to 4, right? Now we'll print it. And you see here, it just gave me is. And what that is saying is, since string is a collection of characters, the first one is indexed, or it starts counting from 0. So if we come here, this t is at the 0 value, and if we go 0, 1, 2, it includes the first number I give it, 2, and then it stops right before the 4th one. So if this is 2, we go 3, 4. It would not include this space, and that's why I'm only given the is. So in slicing, the first index value you give it is included, and it stops just before the second value. Now with slicing, you see here we've given it a range from index value 2, stop just before the 4th one. But if we remove this 4 and just have 2 colon and we print it, we would get something like this, where it starts at the same 2 value and it shows everything afterwards. If we do the opposite of removing the 2 and having just a 4, we would get everything up to just before the 4th one. Now another example of string manipulation is called string concatenation. I say it like that on purpose because it sounds fancy and deserves to be treated as such. We saw an example of this earlier with the 5 and 12 where they merged it into 512, but I'll give another example. So if we give another variable other and we give it string added to this, right? Now we'll come down here and print, and we will concatenate them by just adding string and other variable. Now if I run it, you see here we have it. This is a string added to this, but string and added have been like merged into one word. And that is because with string concatenation, Python doesn't separate it. If you put the plus, it just says you're taking this string, put them together. So we can either add the space here at the end, which I typically do, and there it is separated. This is a string added, or you could remove it here and add it at the beginning of this string. Another type of string manipulation is what's called an F string. And what that is, it just basically makes it easier to add variables into a string. I'll show you what I mean. So here, let me erase all this. Say we want to print, this is our number, right? And we want to give it a number. Before the print, I'll create the number. We'll give it a value of 123. And I want to place that here without having to write myself 123. I want to be able to change this and it automatically show here every time we run it. So before our string, right before the quotation, I'll add an F. And that lets Python know that I'm writing an F string. Now within the print function, way at the end of our sentence, I have to type the curly brace and just include our number. And now we have our F string. I'll go ahead and run it. And you see there, this is our number, 123. I can easily change it here to this really big number, run it, and it works just fine. In Python, you can leave comments, and it's highly recommended to do so. Comments are ignored by the machine. The program doesn't care what sort of comments you write. They're mainly for the users. They help you with whenever you're referring back to the code to see what you wrote, you leave a comment explaining a portion of the code. And also for anyone reviewing your code, they don't know what you're writing. Is maybe the first time they're seeing it, but a good comment can help them understand exactly what this block is trying to do. So to write comments, all you have to do is type pound and then the comment. And that's it. You can do that anywhere. You can do that above the code, on the side of the code, and Python will completely ignore it. You can write your comments on top of the code, to the right of the code, wherever your heart desires. But in the Python community, there's a styling guide that they follow. It's PEP, Python Enhancement Proposal. And what that basically does is just sets a standard for Python programmers to follow for commenting, naming variables, function classes. That way there's no confusion whenever someone is reviewing someone else's code. A couple of those standards for this comment, I'm not sure if you can put it on the side. I don't know. I didn't read the whole thing. It's a really long document. But for now, I do know that variables and functions, whenever you're naming them, you use what's called snake case. And that looks just like this, where each word is lowercase, and if it's more than one word, you separate it with the underscore. If you'd like to read more on the Python standards, there's a lot. More power to you. I'll go ahead and link it in the description. For a quick little exercise, we'll write a program that asks the user for their name, their age, and then calculates and prints when they'll turn 100. So I'll go ahead and create a new file. We'll call it exercise, and we'll begin. We'll first get the name from the user, create a variable name, and assign it the value. What is your name? Then we'll get their age, and remember we need to convert this because they'll give us a string into an integer. How old are you? Alright, now we have their name and age. We need to take the age and do some fun math to figure out when they'll turn 100. So to do that, we simply create a variable years remaining, and we'll set it to 100 minus age, and that's how many years until they turn 100. Then we'll print using an F string, hello, put their name. You will turn 100 in, and then input the years remaining, years. Let's go ahead and run it. What is your name? Anthony. How old are you? 29. And there you have it. I'll turn 171 years. Now we'll try to combine everything we learned into a little project. Now this project will ask the user for the price of 3 items and return them the total cost including sales tax. So let's begin. So we'll make a new file. I'll call it project1.py, and I will start making the variables. So item 1 will be a float. Remember, we have to use type conversion. We'll take the input from the user and ask them cost of first item. And then just to save time, I'll copy these and paste it and just change to match item 1, 2, and 3. Cost of second item, cost of third item. Now we'll take the sum of all of those. Item 1 plus item 2 plus item 3. Now we have sales tax. So let's make a variable for that. Sales tax, I think the standard in the US is 8.25%, which equates to that. So now we'll take the total cost, and that is equal to the sum times the sales tax plus the sum. Now we will return that to the user using an F string and say your total cost including a, and then we'll give the sales tax, multiply it by 100 to give it a percentage. Percent is, we'll go ahead and do the $, and then we'll give the total cost. And we'll run it. Cost of first item, we'll say $5.21, second item $1.23, and the third item is just $1 flat. And there you go. Now you see here there's a bunch of decimals. There's a way to format that so you only get 2 decimals, and I'll show you right now. I've cleared the terminal. Now we know that total cost returned to us is a float value, but it gave us a lot of decimal values, and we only want 2 because that's what we get in money. Way to format that is you add the colon or semicolon. I always get those confused. And then .2f. The 2f just signifies 2 decimal places for Python. Now we run it again. We'll say the cost of the first item is only $1. The second item is $5.23, and the last one is really expensive, almost $1,000. We'll run it, and there you have it. We only have 2 decimal places. Well, that's the lesson for today. I didn't know the video would be this long, but I hope you learned something, and I hope you enjoyed the video. In the next lesson, we'll go over some data structures in Python, such as lists and dictionaries, that will help us store and manipulate data efficiently. I'll see you in the next lesson.